Okay, guys, it's 3:01. Shall we begin? Isai, may you please share screen already? I joke, naka-share na. Okay, hosts, Cassis, are we ready? Hello?
Ready.
Okay, I'll start letting...
Oh.
Ayun. Cassis, are we ready?
Ready po, sorry.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jess, and I will be hosting today's session. While waiting for our most awaited event, please get something good for the heart, and regardless of what you have had for lunch, I hope this session will be meaningful to each one of us. Today's learning hits home, and should you feel overwhelmed or any discomfort, please go to the next slide. Next slide, please. Feel free to contact these hotlines, or you can message anyone from the InTouch team, and we are more than happy to help you process these feelings. So we still have a few minutes to wait. And before we begin, please make sure to keep your microphones on mute during the webinar. And let's maximize our learning space by sharing your insights via chat, and for our FB friends to comment their thoughts or ask questions anonymously via Slido. Remember to make this a safe learning space. Next slide, please. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Right now, we are showing you the Slido, which we will use later during our Kapihan session. Next slide. Right, so now let's begin the highlight of this Kapihan learning session by knowing our facilitators this afternoon. Mr. Nikodemus 𝗬𝗓 is a clinical psychology researcher and mental health professional with experience in psychotherapy, psychological assessments, and LGBTQ plus mental health research. He is pursuing a Master of Arts in Psychology at the La Salle University, Manila, while interning at the Counseling and Psychological Services and InTouch Community Services. Nikodemus also works as a graduate research assistant for the Conflict in Religion Research Group. His research explores dyadic coping, sexual minority stress, and mental health disparities. He has co-authored a Cambridge University book chapter on sexual and gender minority experiences in 11 countries and collaborates on international research projects. Ms. Renee Navarra has worked with a non-government organization on technical vocational education programs with a focus on learning and evaluation. Ms. Renee has also been involved in organization training activities and research projects. She is currently an intern at InTouch Community Services and a fourth-year graduate student pursuing her master's in developmental psychology at Ateneo de Manila University. So now, without further ado, let us all welcome our facilitators and give them a virtual warm round of applause.
Hi, thank you so much,
Sir Nico.
both of us. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. I hope that this will be a learning experience for all of us, and this can also be a safe space for all of us. So the title of this webinar is Inspiring Pride. This is such a nice catch because Pride stands in this webinar is people's relationship and identities with diverse expression. So let's dive into it together. Next slide, please. When we're talking about LGBTQIA plus individuals, I usually refer it as sexual and gender minority. So throughout this webinar, I will mention it as such that encompass every LGBTQIA plus individual. So when we're talking about that and we're going to deep dive into this topic, we really have to understand the basics. And there is this gender unicorn that will help us to understand the basic and the terms, because a lot of us, we are not taught in school about this. So a lot of LGBTQIA plus individuals and even like non-LGBTQIA plus individuals are struggling to catch the basic and the aspect of the LGBTQIA plus community. We're going to start from gender identity. Basically, gender identity is your identification to certain genders. It can be female, male, or others, such as non-binary. And there is another one. This is sex assigned at birth. So what's the difference between sex assigned at birth and gender identity? Sex assigned at birth is basically when you were born, a doctor or a healthcare professional take care of you, and then they assign you to certain sex based on your genitalia. It can be female, it can be male, or it can be intersex. In a sense, intersex, it doesn't really fit in female or male. And this used to be called as biological sex. However, as we evolve our knowledge about this topic, we realize that it is so much better and much more appropriate to say it as sex assigned at birth instead of biological sex, because sex and gender is a really complex thing. It's not only about biological process, but it also encompasses a lot of complex factors. Now, when we're talking about gender identity, we also need to talk about gender expression. Gender expression is basically how you present yourself to the external world, to the people around you. Let's say that a person express their gender by being masculine. They will have a masculine demeanor, like the body posture, the clothing, the hairstyle, and basically it's the way you express your gender to the people, the way you talk, the way your body behave, and then your hairstyle, and basically the expression of your gender. When we're talking about gender identity, sex assigned at birth, and gender expression, there are a lot of misconceptions. First of all, gender identity does not have to align with sex assigned at birth. Let's say that someone's sex assigned at birth is female. It doesn't mean that they need to identify as a female. That's why there is transgender, non-binary, when it does not align the gender identity and sex assigned at birth. And that's actually a very normal process in our life. And people see it as a deviation or a bad thing, but actually, it's a common process. And when we're talking about gender identity, for example, someone identify as a female. In our society, there is this standard, or there is this construct in a sense that female has to behave in certain way, usually feminine, and male has to be masculine. And it doesn't always align that way too. Someone who identify as female, for example, can express themselves and their gender as masculine. For example, a female can express their masculinity through a boy cut or a very, very short hair. That's why it doesn't always have to align. It's a very complex thing. And there is this misconception, usually, just a fun example. If a male, for instance, is expressing, someone identify as a male, and their gender expression is feminine, usually the people will immediately say, oh, he's gay because he's feminine. And that's actually not the case too, which we will talk about right now after this. We're going to talk about sexual orientation, like your attraction to someone physically and emotionally. Basically, sexual orientation encompasses physical attraction and emotional attraction. It can be to same gender, it can be to other gender or opposite gender. For instance, lesbian and gay are people who are attracted to same gender. Pansexual, on the other hand, they don't have specific gender that they like. They like all kind of genders available. And there is also asexual individuals. These individuals has diminished sexual attraction or physical attraction. However, it doesn't mean that they cannot form relationship because they can still form emotional attraction, and they have a diminish. So I wouldn't say it's completely non-sexual attraction, but it's more on diminished to non. And again, physical and emotional attraction or sexuality doesn't have to align to the gender identity. Like again, the example of a man who express their femininity. It doesn't mean that they are attracted to men, because there's a construct that female likes male, the heteronormative construct, and then feminine is associated with female. So when a guy uh, express their gender in a feminine way, we will automatically connect that as gay. But it doesn't always act like that. Uh, a gay person can express their gender expression in a feminine or masculine way. Okay, next slide, please. I hope everyone is able to follow my explanation. Should you have any question or you want me to slow down, let me know in the chat box so I can adjust, so everyone can follow the lecture. So when we're talking about LGBTQIA+, we want to see it in a spectrum, not in a way black or white, not in a sense that male or female, gay or straight. So there's a wide range of identity and expression. Take a look, for example, the biological sex one. This is, I would say, this is the assigned sex at birth, what the doctor assigned you when you were born. It can be male, it can be female, or in between as intersex. So it's not always like the either or. And same goes with gender expression. You can express it in the masculine way, feminine, or in the middle is androgynous or non-binary. So I hope it clears things out in a sense that we don't see it as an either or and see it more as a spectrum. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so as sexual and gender minority individuals, there are a lot of challenges, whether internal challenge or external challenges. So what are those? And if you also would like to share, feel free to share it in the chat box. You can share it privately to me and I will not announce the name. But let's get through it. Let's see the challenges and issues that sexual and gender minority faces. Next slide, please. So there is this internal struggle of LGBTQIA+ individuals. This refers to internal process, so it's not it's not directly because of the external, but it can be influenced by external process. For instance, there is fear of rejection. A lot of sexual and gender minority are afraid that they will be rejected by their family, friends, or even the society in general. So they develop this kind of anticipated rejection. So they will constantly feel anxious and defensive because they're scared. Oh, if they know my sexuality, they will not like me. Or if they know my gender identity, they will reject me and humiliate me. So they are afraid of this rejection. And because of this, they have to hide their true identity. But hiding true identity is not always because of fear of rejection. It's also a form of defense in a sense that violence can come into contact with that person, discrimination, harassment, and in some extreme cases, physical attack to LGBTQIA plus individuals. So hiding in the closet is a very, very common thing for sexual and gender minority, especially for the sexual orientation one, although it's quite challenging for instance, for transgender or non-binary, because sometimes there are certain physical appearance that might indicate that. Although a lot of LGBTQIA plus individuals are facing this struggle, they cannot be themselves to the external world. They have to hide. And then there is this internalized homophobia. I'm sure as a kid, a lot of you were taught that heterosexual relationship is the normal, quote unquote normal, while homosexual relationship, or for example, non-binary transgenders are not normal. And people are making fun of it. People are, for instance, certain religion will teach you to the extreme that it is sinful and you have to repent. All of that negativity and stigma and basically discrimination and negative comments are internalized. So we people adapt that, oh, being gay is wrong. Oh, being transgender is not normal. So the sexual and gender minority individuals will think that and will agree in that. So they are experiencing distress because of that, because they feel like their self is actually wrong because of internalized stigma. It is more appropriate, I would say, to call it internalized stigma because it also happens to transgender, internalized transphobia, and also to minority, like ethnic minority, internalized stigma, like experiencing racism and being a religious minority can also experience internalized stigma. Next, please. So this is a direct external struggles of LGBTQIA plus individuals. Previously, the internalized one, even though it occurs in our internal process, in ourself, it is affected by the outside world. However, there is certain external struggles that are experienced by LGBTQ individuals directly. And there's are also challenges, I would say, in the society that contributes to the struggle that is experienced by sexual and gender minority. First of all, confusion on the term transgender. People are not really familiar with the terms in LGBTQIA plus umbrella. That includes transgender. Sometimes people will say that, for instance, example, let's say again, female who express their gender in a masculine way, they will say that they are transgender, something like that. But that's not the case, is it? As again explained in the unicorn, the gender unicorn, we already know what is it: gender identity, sexual orientation, sex assigned at birth, gender expression, and people don't understand and confuse on that. So it causes misunderstanding to the transgender individuals, like what constitutes a transgender, what constitutes not transgender. So people are yet to grasp the idea. And then in the community itself, the bisexual are not really represented. So there is a lack of representation of the bisexual community. And fun fact, bisexual individuals are actually more prone or easily stressed out or feeling depressed or anxious in comparison to lesbian and gay, because there is this stigma around bisexual individuals saying like you should just choose like guy or female, or it's like it's a phase, so you are just confused, something like that. And yeah, it's underrepresented in the community. And discrimination occurs in daily life, so sexual and gender minorities are experiencing that, but it's also prevalent in employment. Discrimination in employment can take part in harassment toward LGBTQIA plus individuals, or lack of protection toward sexual and gender minorities. And there are some research finding that for sexual and gender minority, they kind of have to work harder just to ensure the stable position is secure for them because of the sexual orientation or gender identity. So discrimination occurs. And there is limited studies on LGBTQIA plus rights, specifically in the Philippines. So there are actually some studies like about mental health specifically. One of them, if you are interested in research, you can check up Sir Mark Eric Reyes. He's one of the pioneer, I would say, from UST. Is a professor specializing in LGBTQIA plus psychology. And yeah, there is also limited study specifically on rights. Yeah, so if you're interested, if you feel like you're called, I hope you can pursue that passion. And in terms of organizations of LGBTQIA plus, there is no specific organization that focuses on intersex and also senior LGBTQIA plus or LGBTQIA plus with disabilities. The senior one is actually quite interesting because a lot of senior LGBTQIA plus individuals experience challenges that are different from non-LGBTQIA plus, and the study has been emerging in the West. So really hoping that it can also emerge in the Philippines. Next. Next slide, please. Okay. Let's talk about mental health of the LGBTQIA plus community. Because of the discrimination from the outside world, and then the internal struggle of being LGBTQIA plus community, they are more likely to experience mental health issues and challenge. And this has been replicated in many research in Western countries and even Asian countries. That includes the Philippines. Usually, LGBTQIA plus individuals are more prone to experiencing stress, anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts, or even attempt. Yeah, in comparison to non-LGBTQIA plus individuals. And that is not because like they are gay, so they are depressed or mentally disordered. It's actually not because of that. Again, it's because of the external struggles and internal struggles for being a minority, whether it's sexual or gender minority. Next slide, please. So how do the government protects individuals like sexual and gender minorities, protecting their rights, protecting their mental health? There are currently no specific LGBTQIA plus law or protection in the Philippines. However, there are general anti-discrimination in the Philippines that can actually be applied to LGBTQIA plus individuals. For instance, the labor code of the Philippines, it ensures that regardless of your sex, you can have equal opportunities. it can apply to LGBTQIA plus individuals. So regardless if you're trans or non-binary, you have the equal opportunities. And the Magna Carta for women, specifically, it protects women from discrimination. The Anti-Bullying Act too, in general, it secures the safety of children in school from abuse, even though it doesn't specify LGBTQIA plus children or kids. It can still include LGBTQIA plus kids or children. So it's basically protecting them from abuse and discrimination, which is very common experience that is faced by the community. And then the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees. This one recognizes that everyone has to receive equal treatment. Basically, whether you're gay, lesbian, pansexual, transgender, non-binary, or other umbrella terms that you identify with, you have the right to be treated right. Next, please. So is in the Philippines a bill that is seeking to end gender-based discrimination. It's the SOGIE bill. I usually call it SOGI, not SOGI. So it's SOGI. Basically, it stands for the Anti-Discrimination Bill, or the Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity Expression Equality Bill. What it's trying to achieve is that they want to promote equal treatment for all sexualities in line with the spirit of Constitution and the rights, of course, of the Filipinos. Next. So the SOGI Equality Bill basically will recognize the fundamental rights of every individual, regardless of your sex, sexuality, gender, age, class, status, disability, religion, and political beliefs. Regardless who you are, your fundamental rights will be recognized and protected. And that also includes those who belong to the LGBTQIA plus community, protecting them from marginalization and discrimination. And of course, ensures equal opportunity and access to healthcare, housing, public service, education, employment, and licensures. Basically, it provides equal protection and penalizes discriminatory behavior. Next, please. Okay, I want to have discussion with everyone. Feel free to join our Slido. I want to ask, how has your understanding of gender or sexuality evolved over time? This could also include before listening to this webinar to after listening to this webinar, which right now. Next, can we show the Slido, please? And can also the Slido link be shared in the chat box? So you can just join the Slido by visiting slido.com and then entering the code, the 1785766, or scanning the QR code. And I also hope the tech support could also share the link here, if it's possible. And I want to make sure that this is a safe space, so we listen and we don't judge. And if we judge, we kick you. Just kidding. Yeah. No, yeah, we listen and we don't judge. And there is no wrong and right, of course. And when you struggle to understand gender identity and sexuality, it is very normal because it is not taught at school. And everyone is struggling to learn about that. Okay, 3 participants are typing. You can also share in the chat box if you want to, either privately or in the public chat box. I hope everyone in this place will also respect privacy, so confidentiality and everything is ensured. Okay, in the chat box, let's read. There is Miss Tracy. To anyone who might need someone to talk about this in private, we have, okay, yeah. We have a standby counselor, just in case if you want to talk about this in private. Just DM any people from In Touch. The name is there is in touch. Okay, let's read. Anonymous first. I have understood by researching as things evolve. Okay, good. You are educating yourself and helping you to understand yourself. Understanding gender from binary to spectrum. Nice. And I found out that it's not really black and white. There's more fluidity in 𝗁𝗍. Yes, absolutely. That's really the point of the explanation. It's very fluid. It's not always like black and white. And there is a research actually right now. They found, but this is relatively new and needs to be replicated, so take it with a grain of salt. They say that every human is actually bisexual, but there is still some debate about it. So it is a relatively new finding, but I wouldn't be surprised because it's, again, it relates to the fluidity. Okay, I will read some. I'm still trying to understand more about this as I do not want to offend or hurt those near me, and I'm being helped by my friend, social media, and seminar about this. I'm not sure if you're part of the community or an ally. If you're an ally, that's very nice. You're educating yourself. If you are not, I hope that it will be a fruitful journey. May not be the easiest one, but I hope that you can learn and unfold everything. Yes, I have understood it by learning and researching about it. That's nice. Another one. Others have understand already, those who are young. Okay, next one. I also have another question, so I'll move on to another topic, but thank you so much for giving your answer. I'll read maybe another two. As a part of LGBTQIA community, I'm wowed by how we are being accepted more by the people. It really warms my heart that people are now starting to be understanding of us. Yes, people are developing more understanding, especially with the growth of internet and rights. So thank you so much. Can we go to the top a little? Text up. This one is quite long. I know about LGBT for a long time. It was normal for me due to my family, yet also being raised in a Catholic household and school. I can see many people who don't understand it the way I did. It took a while for me to understand who I am, and I'm proud of who I am now, especially since I can help others. But I never was aware that the Philippines was finally creating laws that may protect me and those I care about, which makes me hopeful for the future. I'm so glad with your journey, and I'm grateful that you are hopeful for the future. So a lot of people are actually fighting for the rights of sexual and gender minorities. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Thank you so much for answering, everyone. I'm sorry if I cannot read all of it, so we can have more time to even learn more because Miss Renee will later teach you even more with the skills and the info that can be helpful for you. Next is the question, what's something you've learned from someone whose identity or expression is different from yours? Can you go to the Slido? So what's something you've learned from someone whose identity or expression is different from yours? While waiting for the response, I actually would like to share mine. So, my journey of learning about sexual and gender minority was actually very recent. Before my research, I lived in Taiwan quite a bit, and I first met someone whose gender identity is male, sex assigned at birth is male, and gender expression is very feminine, and sexual orientation is heterosexual. So again, because we have, and I also have this knowledge about sexual and gender minority, so I was assuming that maybe if someone was feminine, then it's gay, but I realized that it's not like that. It doesn't work that way. It's very fluid and complex. And throughout that, I learned from my research, of course, and understanding about the complexity and the beauty of the sexual and gender identity. Okay, let's read. First, that you don't have to figure out. Labels can change throughout someone's life, and that's okay. Even having no label is okay too. Yes, sometimes label can be perceived as a pressure in a sense that yeah, it's not helpful. So a lot of people are actually deviating from the label because again, some of the labels are mostly social constructs, including gender expression. So No label is a no problem. Another one, I learned that even if we are different in how we identify ourselves, what matter is I show respect toward them. Exactly. Whether we are the same or different, whether you agree or not, respect is the fundamentals behavior that we should show to other human beings. Another one, there is no single look to any identity. Best to understand and appreciate the diversity. This is very good because there's this thing called gaydar, right? A lot of people are saying, oh, I can tell someone is gay or not. But actually, gaydar is not true. It's intuition. So there is no scientific backing on that. You cannot tell sexual orientation based on physical appearance, voice, or behavior. Another one, I've learned to be more accepting not only to people in the community, but to all kind of people. Nice. Another one, can we go up a little bit before we move on? Something that I have learned is that we are all different and unique. We may have the same characteristic, but there's always something different about each one of us. And I think that's beautiful. Exactly. And that's a good job for finding good meanings in the diversity. Next, please. Wait, yeah, next. So this is actually an interesting question. What helps you take care of your own mental health when you're feeling unseen or misunderstood? Please know that if you don't know yet on how to take care of your own mental health, don't be shy. It's one of the struggle of being part of the community. Can we move to the slide up? So I want to know how do you guys navigate that? And actually, yeah, this will be related to what Miss Renee will explain. She will help you to even further hone your skill to take care of your mental health. But right now, let's see first, before we proceed. This is a very actually challenging thing. Being unseen, being misunderstood, being rejected, and it's a very common struggle for every sexual and gender minorities. Okay, let's read the first one. Go to my friends to hang out with them, but also seeking help from a counselor. That's very nice. Thank you so much for taking a step to take care of your mental health by going to a mental health professional. It is not a shame to ask for help, and it's actually a way for you to protect yourself. Another one, walk in nature or swim. Doing productive things. Distracting yourself with a good thing. Nice. Another one, reconnecting with nature, taking a walk or go hike a mountain to breathe. So we kind of find a team here. Two people are into nature. So nature is actually helpful for you guys. I affirm myself the best I can. Nice. Another one, research forum, share your story and find unity and community. Another one, I talk to someone who understands me, not just because they know me, but also because they have experience. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for your answers. I'm sorry I cannot read all of them, but I really appreciate your answer and openness. And thank you so much for sharing all that. In relation to this question, Miss Renee right now will talk about like how to build inclusive community and activating allyship. So Miss Renee, stage is yours.
Okay, thank you, Nico. So, before we go on, no, I just wanted to check on our participants no, here in Zoom and on Facebook as well. No, kung kamusta na kayo? How are you doing? Maybe you can react to an emoji to let us know if you're still there. Okay, so I'm seeing heart emojis. That's nice, no? So this topic can be quite sensitive, no? And there might be some experiences or memories that we recall, no, as we reflect on our identity and our experiences, no? And we are in this together, no? As Jess mentioned, no? If you ever feel overwhelmed, you can let us know so we can better support you. Okay, so we now go to the next part of this Kapihan, which is more on building an inclusive community and activating our allyship. Next slide. Okay, so before we keep going, no, let's take a moment to ask ourselves these following questions. So, who are my closest three friends? What similarities do we share? Do I find only a certain type of person attractive? So, when I picture a doctor in my head, what do they look like? What do they sound like? So, what's their race? What's their gender? And would it be different for a nurse? And what ideas and values do I attach to different genders? Was there a time that I felt uncomfortable with someone's sexual orientation? And what were the thoughts that was in your mind during that time? And what was the last gender stereotype that I witnessed but I didn't mention? So what stopped you during that time? So keep your answers in mind no, as we go through the Kapihan, and it can help you notice some assumptions or biases you didn't realize you have. No, and it's okay if you do have them because this space is about learning and growing. Okay, next slide. Okay. So, in inspiring authentic pride, no, we can do the following things. Now, we can stay informed, whether it's something you've seen in the news or something happening closer at home, like maybe it happened within your own circle, maybe your friends or your coworkers. So it's important to acknowledge and to learn what people might be going through. No, so when we stay informed, we can learn how to better support them. So their experiences and what were their feelings when something happened to them. No, so we also confront our own prejudice and our unconscious bias. No, so we take note when you feel anger or discomfort or even an unconscious bias towards a particular group. So we can pause and reflect. So what were the thoughts that were coming up? Where might they be coming from? No, and it also calls on us to be willing to confront these thoughts and feelings honestly. No, and we use that awareness as a starting point so we can be able to grow and become better allies and be more inclusive. So we also don't assume. We don't assume about people's relationships and their identities. So we avoid assuming that the norm is being straight, no? So as we have learned in the previous part, there are diverse ways in relationships and identities. So it's better that we don't ask, that we don't assume, and instead we can ask, no, if we're not sure. We can also be more cautious about our language, no? So our language matters. So it's important to remember that it can intentionally or unintentionally hurt other people. So that's something we will be doing or we will be learning for later on. Know the correct terms and being mindful of how we can come across. And lastly, we think of of being an ally as an action rather than a label. So when we think of it more as an action, no, it's more intentional, no, and there's a certain responsibility in being an ally. And as we learn more about how we can be better allies in the succeeding slides, I also want to remind you that we are also capable of making mistakes, no? And what's more important is that we learn from it and we become better allies, using it as a starting point. Okay, so these are just some of the things that we can do to build a more inclusive community and to activate our allyship. And now we will go deeper into the specific ways we can be more inclusive. Next slide, please. Okay. So first, we use inclusive language. No, so for this example, no, we avoid saying each student makes up his own schedule. So the best practice would be to say students make up their own schedule. So in cases like this, no, when we make general statements, so it's addressed to a lot of people, we use they or them pronouns, no, whenever possible. So if we use these kinds of pronouns, they, them, we allow more people to be included in our statement. And another term is man or mankind. So the best practice is to use humanity or human race. So it's a more genderless reference. No, so humanity or human race is more genderless and it can be more inclusive when we refer to humanity. So another example here is using the terms weatherman, fireman, housewife. So the best practice is to use meteorologist, firefighter, homemaker. No, so we make these occupations genderless. No. And lastly, we have this example, no, male nurse. No, so the best practice is to simply use nurse. So we avoid adding gender markers to these occupations. So referring to a male nurse implies that nurses are female, but the word nurse is actually both. It actually refers to both male and female professionals. So it's regardless of their gender. So we can use that term instead to refer to anyone in that role. Next slide, please. Okay. So we also understand and use the correct terms. No? So as we have learned in the previous part, no? So one term we can avoid is using the term sexual preference. So this term is used to suggest that being attracted to the same sex is a choice. So it can be cured, it can be changed, and it also suggests that people can change their preference. No? Like you prefer this or that, and then the next time you'll prefer a different thing. No, so a more accurate and inclusive description of a person's enduring physical, romantic, and or emotional attraction to people of the same gender and or people of a different gender is to use the term sexual orientation. Next slide, please. Okay. So another term we avoid is the term homosexual. So if you've noticed, no, this term has clinical connotation, no, and it's been used by other people to suggest that people attracted to the same sex are somehow diseased, no, or psychologically or emotionally disordered. So the best practice maybe is to use gay or gay man or lesbian or gay people or gay person. So when we use gay, lesbian, or when appropriate, bisexual, pansexual, or queer to describe people attracted to people of the same gender or more than one gender, it's more inclusive. No, so even better is asking people how they describe themselves or how they identify before we actually label them from their sexual orientation. So as we've learned in the discussion earlier, no, some people actually don't like labels or they're still trying to figure out the labels. So it's better to ask them, no, rather than assuming. Next slide, please. Okay, so it's not just the terms that we have to be mindful of, but also our statements. So some statements can come across as microaggressive. No, so microaggression, these are statements or behaviors that are subtle and it can also be intentional or unintentional, but it communicates some sort of bias towards marginalized groups. So these are terms that we unintentionally say that can actually hurt or offend some groups. No, so one example of this, no, is when we use the term homosexual relationship, homosexual couple, or homosexual sex. So identifying and characterizing same-sex relationships as homosexual should be avoided. So as I mentioned, this term is usually used by anti-LGBTQIA plus activists to shame people in the community. So it's an unnecessary label that we don't do to other couples. So we don't call other couples as straight couples, straight sex, straight relationship. No? So as a rule, we try to avoid labeling an activity, no, an emotion, or a relationship as gay, lesbian, bisexual, or queer, unless you would do the same, no, if it's done by if it's unless you would do the same, no, unless you would call the same as straight if it is done by another person. So we can simply call it a relationship or a couple, right? And if necessary, we say gay couple, a lesbian couple, or a same-sex couple. Next slide, please. So another term, another microaggressive term, is saying a gay lifestyle, an LGBTQIA plus lifestyle, or a homosexual lifestyle, or a transgender lifestyle. So there is no single LGBTQIA plus lifestyle. So people are diverse in the way they lead their lives. And if we label it as a lifestyle, no, it can suggest again that their sexual orientation or gender identity is a choice, and therefore it can be cured or changed. So the best practice is to just say LGBTQIA plus people and their lives. No, so no relationship or identity is ever exactly the same. No? And using a phrase like this, no, helps recognize that people are diverse in the way they live their lives, and it removes that connotation that it has to be cured or changed, but in fact it's respected. No, we respect people and their lives. Next slide. Okay, so if you're unsure, we don't assume. No, we can ask in a nice and respectful way. So this shows that as allies, we are capable of change, and we are willing to learn more about other people's relationships and their identities. But also we avoid asking very personal things, no? And it's still important to be respectful, making sure na your intention is to learn and to be a better ally, to be more inclusive, no, and to build a better connection with people in the community. Next slide. Okay, so now that we've learned all these different ways we can activate our allyship and build more inclusive communities through our language or behavior. So I want to hear from you naman, no? No, what does an inclusive community look like to you? Next slide. So when you think of inclusivity, no, what does it look like in your school, in your work, or your close circle of friends? So you can go on Slido to share your answers, or you can also comment it on in the chat box here in Zoom. So I see one response here, no, a safe space environment. No, and that's a great point, no. Inclusive communities are also safe spaces, no, where you can be truly yourself, you can express yourself, and without fearing judgment, no, or discrimination, or possibly even bullying. So we also have another answer here. No, we respect regardless of your identity or expression. So it means na we respect na no matter how diverse people live their lives, no, at the end of the day, they're still people, no, and they deserve our respect. So representation is another thing. It's another thing. It's another way we can be more inclusive, no, if we are able to make sure that people from different backgrounds, from different diverse expressions and identities are represented. So it can look like in our school, no, or in our workplace, no, seeing more of LGBTQIA plus community or individuals in our workplace. So treating people as human, not as straight or part of LGBT plus and equal treatment, right? So as I mentioned, no, it's important to see people as not with their label, not with their orientation, though it's a big part of their identity, no. But at the end of the day, we're all humans, no, and we all deserve equal treatment. Okay. So we can also be open-minded, right? And more accepting of diversity. Okay, so here's a more specific example, no, in the academic settings, we can have gender neutral clothes and the freedom of people to express themselves, right? So in these settings, no, it's important that we're able to express ourselves in our clothing, in the way we present ourselves to other people, in the way that we want. No? So this can come in the form of gender neutral clothes, no? like uniforms, no, na gender neutral. So another answer here is not being bound to social norms or and stigma, right? So sometimes these social norms can be so powerful, no, na it can affect the way we see ourselves. Like we can internalize it, and so an inclusive community would look like not being bound anymore by these norms and creating our own set of norms, no, based on openness on and acceptance. So another answer here now is having an open environment, a comfortable and safe environment. And another example here is having gender affirming clothes, especially uniforms, right? So when uniforms, no, they're required of us in an organization or in a school, no, we're required to wear certain uniforms. It's important that these clothes are gender affirming, and we're able to wear what we want. And another example here is having an all gender comfort rooms. Some places have this, some places don't, and it's a good reminder, no, na in building inclusive communities also includes all these little things like our clothes, our comfort rooms. So we also allow students to enter in schools regardless of their hair length, right? So in our childhood, maybe in the past, no, when we were in high school, we were required not to wear to have a certain hair length, no, and it's important na we recognize that people have different ways of expressing their looks, no, and part of this is the hair length, and so we want the students to be able to to wear any kind of hair length they want. Okay, next slide. Okay, so another question I have for everyone, no, is coming from this session, what small acts of allyship can I already try? Next slide. Okay, so this doesn't have to be anything big, no? Although you're free to suggest or to give examples of acts of allyship you can try. No? So something that is more inclusive, no, and acts that show that you're being an ally to the community. So it can be in your language, in your behavior, even in your thoughts, no, or different things that you can do um, that promote allyship, no, and promote inclusive communities. Okay, so we have one answer here. No, asking pronouns and not assuming them is already can spark a bigger conversation, right? So asking pronouns, no, and not assuming. No, so this can look like in group settings, making sure everyone is able to express or to say the kind of pronouns they would want. No, so it's not just for them, but for everyone, no, to learn how to better address that person. And it's also a way for other people to become more inclusive in their words. So another example here is be mindful of your words or actions, right? So as we mentioned, no, as we've learned earlier, no, it's important to be mindful of our words and our actions, as sometimes it can come across as microaggressive, it can come across as hurtful or offensive. No? So it's important to always think about our actions and whether this action is actually in the spirit of being more inclusive, or whether it's showing that I'm an ally to other people. No? So showing kindness to everyone, no, that's very important. Being able to show kindness maybe through acts of acceptance, no, and being sensitive also. No? So this can look like asking pronouns, right? So being sensitive, not that our actions, our words, and the way we address people matter. So one answer here is emotional support to my closeted friends maybe and respecting them, right? So I'm sure we all have friends who are members of the LGBTQIA plus community. So it's important that we personally support them, right? So it's not just in general, no, na we become allies, but more importantly to our close friends. So being able to provide emotional support to them, being able to respect them, and find out how you can better support them as friends. So another question here is informing people of knowledge on gender equality, right? So it's important no na as we're here in this webinar in this Kapihan, we're learning um more about people's diverse ways of expressing identities and their relationships. So it's we're learning here, no, and other people don't have that opportunity, and other people may still even be closed to actually learning. So one way we can be allies is to inform people on all these different terms on how we can be better allies and be more inclusive. So don't out someone, especially if they only came out to you. So that's very important, right? So when someone comes out to us, no, as we mentioned, we don't assume that they've been already out to a lot of people. So sometimes it can be hard for other people to come out. And so being an ally means respecting their privacy and respecting their boundaries. No, so allowing them to come out in their own time. No, so that's we definitely don't out other people, especially when they're not out in front and out to a lot of people yet. So another answer here is not assuming and asking, right? So that's another that's what we have learned earlier, no? So we don't assume, we ask. No, but also keeping in mind that when we ask, we still have to be respectful. We still have to be mindful. So we also stopping and reflecting if I get a stereotypical thought and correcting it immediately. Right. That's so important, no, because some of these social norms, some of these norms have been so powerful, no, for other people galing childhood pa, no, that's the norm that you hear and learn from other people. And so now that we're learning more about it, no, it's important that we're able to reflect also when we make the occasional mistake, no, if we get a stereotypical thought, no, like, or having thoughts that may be homophobic or transphobic. So it's important to reflect on it, to stop and to correct it. So you understand where it came from, what was the thought, and how you can be better. It's important how we respond when we make mistakes like this. So another answer here is apologizing immediately when I misgender or mispronoun someone. Yes. So it can be quite upsetting, not only to the person, but to the to you know who misgendered or mispronounced someone. It can be unintentional sometimes, no, and it's important that we apologize, no, that we let that other person know na that we're sorry, no, we apologize, and that we also get to learn their pronoun. So it's in the spirit of not assuming and asking. So we also have another answer here, no, to be a gender equality advocate. So I wonder, no, to this person who answered this, what does that look like, being a gender equality advocate, right? Because we can be advocates in different ways, no? So we can be in touch with communities that are communities in LGBTQIA plus communities and help support their organization, their advocacy. So they might have different projects. So one way of being an advocate may be participating in that as an ally. So another answer here is to stop misgendering and stereotypes, right? So as we've we've discussed earlier, no? So misgendering and stereotypes, it's hard to stop it, no? But we're here in this Kapihan and we're learning, no? So it's an important step into to slowly controlling and stopping that stereotypes we might have in our mind, the stigmas that we might have. Okay, so are there any more answers? No, small acts of allyship that we can try after this kapihan, no, na you can try with your friends or maybe in your workplace. So I have another answer here. Now, in our university, there's one organization where they prioritize the safe space of not only LGBTQ community but all of the students, faculty, and staff. So that's an important organization, no? And it's important to support them in any way that you can, because when we speak of inclusive communities, it's not only for the LGBTQ QIA plus community, but all people to feel welcome and to feel safe in that community. So that's a good way of being an ally, supporting the diverse expressions and identities of everyone. So we have another answer here, no, being gender sensitive. Right? So being sensitive to other people's identities, their gender expressions, their sexual orientations. It's important in allyship. So we have another answer here, using gender fair language. Right. So to the person who asked this, no, maybe you can give an example, no, what could be gender fair language? Okay, so if you have any more thoughts, no, if you have any more suggestions, no, of small acts of allyship, and it can also help the other people here in the webinar to get some ideas how they can practice allyship, you know, and allyship can also be quite personal din, no? It's something you practice in your immediate workplace, in your organization, with your friends, no? Okay, so affirming and supportive words like saying it's okay to exist, right? Right. And that can be very powerful when someone hears that. No, because as you can imagine, as we've learned in the previous part, no, that people in the LGBTQIA plus community, they deal with a lot of internalized hate, internalized stigma, no, and that can affect their mental health, no? So they experience they become fearful of rejection. So hearing words like it's okay to exist can be very powerful for them. It can make them feel na they are welcome in this community. And you as an ally, you can make them feel na you are someone that they can trust, right? So I wonder if there are any more words like this, no? Kasi ang ganda nung it's okay to exist. I wonder if we can think of more words like this. So I have another question here to stop gender bias, right? So as we've mentioned, no, it can look like being more reflective, no, of your personal biases, being willing to confront your own prejudice, and being able to to act on whenever you have these kinds of thoughts, no, being able to reflect on it and become better, right? So as we've mentioned, allyship is an act. No, it's not just a label. So when we use the label, or when we call ourselves ally, right, this means that we are more willing to be more reflective of our behavior and our thoughts. So we have another response here, no, accepting the idea of gender equality, right? So being able to accept, no, this, and not only accept, no, but also being able to make sure that this idea of gender equality is not just something that we know as an idea, but we actually get to practice through our behavior and through our language. Okay, so I think that's all the answers we have for today. So thank you to all our participants now for sharing, and I hope this is really something that we can practice now after this webinar, after this Kapihan. Okay, next slide, please.
All right, so thank you, Sir Nico and Miss Renee, for this mind-opening and heart talk about inspiring pride. We will now proceed with our question and answer portion. So does anyone have a question? If you do, feel free to type it in the Slido, or you can also chat your question. All right, so question number 1. What should I do if I accidentally misgendered someone? Sir Nico, Miss Renee, any one of you can answer.
Ate, do you want to answer?
Okay, okay. So, when you accidentally misgender someone, no, as we've discussed earlier, no, it can feel bad for both you and the person you're misgendering. So, what we can do, no, is to apologize, no, make sure na it wasn't in the spirit of being homophobic or transphobic, no, but was actually a mistake, and that we can also get to learn. We can also take it as an opportunity to learn what actually are their pronouns, how do they identify. No, it can be a way or an opportunity for you to get to know and to connect with that person and to learn about them. So it's okay if you misgender someone, but make sure it was a mistake, no, and that you can be better the next time you address that person.
And to add to that, I also, oops, sorry. I also would like to add that it is important to be kind to yourself when you accidentally do that. If you are not aware of it, in a sense that we are all still learning. And again, just like so, yeah, keep learning and be kind to yourself too.
Okay, so thank you, Miss Renee, Sir Nico. And I guess it's very human of us to make mistakes, and saying sorry or apologize will not make less of a person. So for question number 2, what would you think is the best way to let other people be aware of these kind of things when they refuse to talk about it?
From what I understand is that what would you think is the best way to inform people about allyship or about the LGBTQIA plus umbrella when they don't want to talk about it? Is that I think I got it right.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I think it's also important to know that we really cannot force everyone to kind of like listen to us or to in a sense that to be willing to talk about it in a sense that informing them kindly is actually a good step. However, when they keep rejecting in a sense that we really couldn't enforce that, but we can still indirectly educate them by either setting a good example as an ally. For instance, maybe sharing educational content on Instagram or your social media. Simply being an example of an ally is already enough education that can influence them to maybe think that uh, maybe I should learn something about this or incite their curiosity. So by doing that, you can actually influence them indirectly, making them curious about that. Okay. Miss Renee, do you want to add something?
Okay, siguro to add, no, so being an example to them, no, so you can show them, no, what allyship can be, no, so what acceptance looks like, no, so through your words and through your actions, no, so it might be difficult to actually lecture them, kasi sometimes these kinds of people may be really hesitant to listen, no, so instead of lecturing them, you can show them, no, how beautiful it is to be accepting towards other people, and hopefully they can be inspired in their own ways, no, to see na it's okay to be an ally, it's okay to be accepting, and they can practice it as well.
I agree to that idea, Sir Nico and Miss Renee. And yes, I guess we have to live our truth. And by living our truth, it already set the best example on how to be open about the idea of the LGBT community. Okay, so we have questions here. Which one? Okay, so here on top, how to align medical approach on LGBTQ plus treatments in doctrinalized anti-same-sex relationships churches. I guess it would help if we can have additional context to that question, but if Sir Nico is ready to answer, go ahead.
I actually would like to add, if you can respond again, you can respond in Slido or chat me directly. What do you mean by medical approach? Because I am not sure what you're referring to. Do you mean like counseling, like psychotherapy, or what are you referring to? If you can explain that, that will be helpful. Maybe while waiting, we can move to another question.
Sure. So, what important elements should be considered when designing inclusive spaces, infrastructures, and buildings? If we want an inclusive buildings, infrastructures, what should be an important elements to consider?
Right. So maybe I can try to answer this question. No? So when we design spaces or infrastructures and buildings to be more inclusive, no, some things that we could consider is who will be the people using this building, no, this space, and keeping in mind what are their needs. No, so what will these people who will be using our spaces would actually need, and based from that, we can design it to be more inclusive, right? So making sure na when we refer to or to the people who will use it, no, we are also thinking about all the different ways or all the different needs that can come up. No, so this can look like gender neutral bathrooms, no, or maybe even ramps, no, for persons with disabilities, no. So when we consider these kinds of elements, the people who will use them, and what are their needs, we can be more inclusive when we design these spaces.
Thank you, Ms. Renee. And it's really more of considering the needs of these people who will use these spaces. Okay, so another one. What are ways I can do to make feel less ashamed of my identity?
Okay, I can answer to that. So first of all, again, feeling of shame is shaped through what your life because you learn a lot of this stigma. So there is this program actually in I can check that later. Maybe I can share it here. There is this program. It's made by American researcher. The program basically is trying to reconstruct our mind as a human being for instance, in the LGBTQIA plus community, it's going to reconstruct the knowledge that is acquired. For instance, being LGBTQ is a mental disorder, or the normal one is female or male. Those knowledge needs to be reconstructed and debunked in a sense that it's basically like facts and myth. So that program actually is very useful to help people to feel less ashamed by deconstructing their internalized homophobia. So by learning a lot more about that could actually be very helpful. In some population, for instance, in Western country or in countries that are friendly toward LGBTQI plus community, connecting to your community, like LGBT organization or local community, can actually help you to foster connection and kind of make you realize that it is a common thing. Like we all are human beings, something like that. However, it can also be noted that in a hostile environment, it actually can increase depression. So just be careful when connecting to community. That's basically one of the steps that you can take. Feeling less ashamed is due to all of the internalized stigma that you have. So deconstructing it is actually a way for you to unlearn the thoughts that makes you feel ashamed. I hope that helps.
Okay, so that's for Sir Nico. And all right. Another question. What are your thoughts on politicians using the phrases ally of the LGBTQ plus community to gain votes and support to only ignore them after the election?
Okay, maybe I can try to answer this question. No? So, it sometimes no politicians or local leaders will brand themselves as allies. They can label themselves. No, but as we've learned, no, in this Kapihan, no, that allyship is not just a label, and it's an action, right? So it's important to look at their actions. No, what are they actually doing to help people in the community? How are they better supporting people in the community? So it's important to look at these things, no, whenever people label themselves as allies. Although it's a good thing, no, na more people are more open to labeling themselves as allies, no, being able to being available for people to support people in the community, no, but it's also still important to be more to be more cautious, no, and to actually check, no, kung they are really being allies or is it just a label that they have put on for themselves.
Okay, so thank you, Miss Renee. And any questions? Oh, here. How to deal with members of the LGBTQ plus community who are unwelcoming towards others, for example, towards asexual people since they
Hi,
don't.
Jordan. Yes.
Okay, we're here.
Ayun.
Again, how to deal with members of the LGBTQ plus community who are unwelcoming towards others. For example, towards asexual people since they don't believe in asexuality.
Okay, I can try to answer this. No, so sometimes no, the stigma can come from the community itself. No, so not only towards asexual people, but sometimes there's also stigma around bisexual people. No, and there's pressure for them to choose a side, as Nico mentioned earlier. No, so it can be painful. No, when you experience it from the very community who you expect acceptance and 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 for them to be welcoming to you. No, so what you can do here is to approach it in a safe way, making sure that you are safe, no, and maybe gently informing them about how you identify yourself, making it about yourself, and explaining to these people who might not be the most welcoming, how you identify and how you choose to how you express yourself, right? So it can be difficult to start that conversation, especially towards people who are not that open, but gently allowing that conversation to happen, although it can be difficult. And of course, making sure you are safe when you do so could help them understand and see where it's coming from.
I would like to add if I can. I do agree with with Miss Renee that again education is always the key. Educating people in a sense that you are not forcing, but approaching it in a kind way is the key. But also understanding that not everyone has that capability yet can also be helpful for you so you're not feeling frustrated. So for instance, like this, there is this thing among gay men. They are called femphobia. So they are they hate femininity in a sense that if they're being emotional or even like if a man is behaving in a feminine way, their gender expression, they don't like it. So they reject that concept. And by understanding that, we can realize that, oh yeah, some people, maybe it's not because of us, but they're also struggling, which femophobia is constructed or developed in gay men because of toxic masculinity. So understanding that some people might actually have their own internal process which prevents them to kind of be inclusive could also be helpful to protect yourself.
Okay, so thank you, Renee and Nico. Any questions? Right now, we are just seeing if we skip any. Okay.
There is one. Oops. There's one actually showing in the screen. In line with the question about unwelcoming spaces, I also find trouble mingling with fellow gay people as I am met with hostility. How can I find a safe space? I'm so sorry to hear that being welcomed with hostility. And I think this question, the tricky part about this question is it requires a lot of context. So I am unsure in terms of hostility. Is it physical hostility or they're rejecting you emotionally or socially? So it's very important to identify that. Of course, if it's physical hostility, please take care of yourself and immediately remove yourself from that situation. But finding community, you can actually reach out to many organizations in the Philippines. You can Google like what organization are they offering community group or are they conducting event, and by that you can actually foster connection because I think it's quite limited for LGBTQIA plus individuals to foster connection. It's either like maybe through dating apps, which we know that most of the time it can be less helpful than helpful, although it's not always that case. But yeah, by reaching out to NGO, just Google like LGBT or gay organization in the Philippines and then reach out to them, ask if they have membership, ask if they have event. So you can, I ensure the, at least in that, there will be no hostility. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, Sir Nico. And another one, is it possible and feasible to conduct seminars on rural areas for safe spaces, LGBTQ plus umbrella and all?
Hello, I can try to answer this question. I think right now, no, there are organizations who conduct these kinds of seminars on building safe spaces in rural areas. No, particularly this might happen in the workplace, no, and in these kinds of seminars, it can be possible, it can be feasible, no, as we are as people in the community are protected under the law, no, from discrimination, and so as they are protected by the law, no, so these kinds of seminars can be more accessible, or it can be more possible now. Right. So it's in an effort to teach more people, especially in the rural areas, who are not so much aware of these of creating safe spaces, of the different ways of expressing of sexual orientation and gender identity. So this can be helpful in these kinds of environments.
I would like to add my input on that. This is actually a very interesting question. That's why I'm smiling because, for context, I actually grew up in Indonesia. I live in Indonesia, and we actually have an envoy from America. So the United States are sending an envoy to kind of conduct a webinar about LGBTQIA+. Actually, it's more on inclusivity that includes LGBTQIA+, and it was seen with backlash from the government and a lot of organization. So it really is depends on the environment, but the approach right now for a lot of organizations, this is based on social psychology. They are aiming to educate on the younger generation. So they're not trying to change like the adult right now. They're not trying to change Miss Renee right now. So that, for example, Miss Renee is homophobic. They're not trying to change Miss Renee to be less homophobic, but they're targeting the younger audience, providing education to them so that they can promote inclusivity. They may not see the result now, but as the younger generation grow up, inclusivity take place, the behavior take place. So that's why a lot of people, like Gen Z, for example, they are more accepting toward LGBTQIA plus community, and in contrast to like the previous generation, like for example millennial. So that's how they approach it. So in a sense that possible or not, it really depends on that. But whether it's effective or not, I think it's gonna be a better question for that. Okay.
Thank you, Miss Renee and Sir Nico. And coming from one of the comments in the chat box, as a student leader and someone who aspires to be helping professionals someday, I want to help even those in rural areas, the vulnerable people, and more to be more informed and safe. Okay.
Sorry, I wasn't able to catch the question. Can you reread again? Thank you
It's
so much.
more of a comment in the chat box. Okay, so okay. Any questions? I think we answered everything here already. And with that, yeah. Thank you so much, everybody, for sharing and asking your thought-provoking questions. This helped us further clarify the struggles and challenges the LGBTQ plus community has been facing. And at this point, to immortalize the event, of course, we will not let you go without having a souvenir of this moment. So if you can, please turn on your cameras, everyone. Let's go, guys. Just give a moment to fix your framing in the camera. And who will take a screenshot of all
Hello, me. Okay, thank you for. All right. Okay, so while waiting, you can uh prepare yourself, retouch, makeup, prepare hair, Go lang. I'll give you mga 30 seconds. Okay? Let me... Okay. Yung naka-off cam, if you can't open your cameras, just choose an emoji. You can use the heart reactions or any emoji that you like. Okay. So, ready na ba?
I think we're ready.
Okay. Okay. All right. Show us your beautiful smiles, everyone. So, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, wait, one more. We have 2 pages. Okay, another one. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Miss Isa, for taking our photos. All right, so now may I call on Miss Kayla to discuss about our advocacy and outreach program.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, is the camera working? I think I am upside down. Oh no. Okay. There's. Oh, am I? Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending our talk. It's important to have these conversations, not just on Pride Month, but any month, because we want to make the world as inclusive as we can. And you're definitely doing your part by showing up, whether you're part of the community or not. So thank you again for listening. Thank you to our facilitators and for our hosts for creating a very safe and warm environment for people to share. And again, as you can see on the screen, we're flashing our crisis line again. If you feel that we talked about something that was a bit heavy, or in general, if you feel like you're carrying something with you or you're going through something emotional, please know that our crisis lines are open 24/7 and we have trained responders who can speak in English, Filipino, and Bisaya. We're always here. In Touch is just here, so don't hesitate to reach out. If you ever want to collaborate with us, we offer trainings, workshops, and things like that for your own community and organizations. You can reach out through our website or our email, which you can see on the screen, and we'll happily pick it up and meet with you guys so we can discuss your community's needs. I think if I remember correctly, somebody placed the question in the chat whether we can do LGBTQ focused talks for rural areas. And definitely, if your organization would like to do that, or if you're part of a community that would like to do that, reach out to us via email and we can definitely discuss what we can do within our capacity, given your community's needs. So my name's Kayla again. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you for our next Kapihan. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Kayla. And for the numbers, everyone, we would highly appreciate if you could share them on any of your social media accounts. And we have the crisis line, which is free and anonymous. So if you feel that you know someone might need it, and if you want to reach out in InTouch community for mental health and self-care tips, you can call and follow us online on our social media accounts. Right now, we are flashing it on the screen. So thank you again, everybody. For your e-certificates, please make sure to scan the QR code for your feedback on today's Kapihan learning session. It will be available for 1 week only, so make sure that you provide feedback within the week, or if you can do it now, please scan the QR code. Next slide, please. So there you have it. Finally, we would like to thank all the participants, of course, our facilitators, Miss Renee, Sir Nico, and this is again Jess, together with the team behind the Kapihan session, my co-volunteers, Cheryl, Kayla, Isabel, Kenzo, Isai, Julian, Ella, Erica, Chronica, Isa, Danny, and Tracy. Have a great weekend, everybody, and happy Pride Month. Thank you.
Thank you po.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. Hope it helps you.
Hello, team. Please stay behind. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Happy Pride. Happy Pride.
Hi, Zar. Can you kindly end live stream? Thank you.